Hi, it feels a bit strange to be making a video again, but with today being Transgender Day of Visibility, I figure I'm ready enough to be, well, visible. My name is Kira, my pronouns are she and her. I'm a trans woman and I've been on hormone replacement therapy, or HRT, for almost a year and a half now. Today is a day meant to celebrate transgender folks, to highlight their contributions to society, but also the struggles that they face on a daily basis. But most importantly, it's a day meant to show the world that we exist. It's far too easy to wrap ourselves in an echo chamber of our own cultures and social groups. And I know personally that if I had just known about transgender people while growing up and not media's depiction of trans people, then I would have made sense of my life far, far earlier. So that's what this video is about. I wanted to share my story, the struggles I faced while growing up pre-transition, how I discovered that I'm trans, the challenges I faced after my discovery, and how I ended up where I am today. But before I go into my story, I need to say that I would never be where I am today if I didn't have the love and support from my partner and my friends. This journey has been immensely difficult, and yet I know it could have been so much worse if I didn't have their support. I've been incredibly fortunate to transition in a loving and understanding environment, and I know that so many other trans folk just don't have the opportunity or means to safely transition in the same way. My hope is that by sharing my story, the world can learn to stop treating transgender folk as some diabolical other, and more people can safely explore themselves without fear of rejection or hate. Alright, so my life growing up was a little strange. I remember having very distinct thoughts that, since I was 4, that I just didn't quite understand the world, but hey, as long as I follow what everyone else says I'm supposed to do, then I'll turn out okay. All these people around me were alive for so much longer than I've been, so clearly they knew what they were doing and how things are supposed to be. So from watching all this media on TV and watching how other families, other older families worked, I thought for sure that a guy's life was about graduating, getting a high-paying job, getting married to a woman, and having a family. The guy has to be the rock in the relationship. He can't ever show emotions or cry. He has to be rugged, sporty, strong, intimidating. I felt like these were the rules I had to follow, and I tried my best at fitting within that rule set. I tried to play soccer. I cracked my knuckles all the time. I cursed anytime I had the opportunity to do so, and I made sure to bottle up all of my emotions. But I never really could follow all of those rules. I was a late bloomer, and I never really felt bothered by that fact until it was pointed out to me. How skinny and hairless I was, how high my voice still was. I was constantly mocked for my lack of muscles, and yet I never could bring myself to actually work out. I was fine with the way that I looked until I was told it wasn't fine to be that way by all these other kids. Eventually, yes, puberty kicked in as I got older, but thinking back, I was probably my happiest during that time. The pain from the mucking stuck around, though, so I ended up sticking to wearing baggy, plain clothing in order to blend in wherever I went. Anyways, fast forward to the year 2017, and I'm wrapping up my master's degree in game programming. We get an assignment to debate a topic, and I ended up getting racial and gender inclusion in video games, and I had to advocate in favor for it. You can probably see where this is going. Well, at the same time, a YouTuber I was following posted a playthrough of a game called A Normal Lost Phone, which involves the player poking around a smartphone to discover the story of a transgender girl named Sam and her own journey of self-discovery. That game had so many moments that stuck out to me, especially the feeling of not fitting in combined with being told to follow in others' footsteps. All of that just made me start to question myself. I had realized that I'd spent 25 years of my life in following someone else's rulebook on life, and it never occurred to me that I barely knew anything about myself. That, combined with the need to research gender for my debate at school, it made me search deeply within myself about my own gender and what kind of person I am. How much of me is really me, and how much of me is me trying to be what a man is supposed to be? I was just made of layer of masks, and no one, not even myself, knew the kind of person I truly was underneath it all. The best way I've found to describe it is, my mind is playing a video game and my body was just the character on the screen. Things were getting done, yeah, but there was no attachment to what was actually happening. It was just one task after another to complete some quest that life had given me. So I eased into things. I spent several months doing research on what it means to be transgender. I saw a gender therapist, and then I went on HRT. My partner was scared at first, but supportive once they realized that the parts of my personality that they fell in love with wasn't going away anytime soon. Underneath it all, I still was me. My family, however, was throwing every fear, worry, and doubt they could think of at me. How I could lose my friends, my job, my partner if I kept going. At the time, only one of my parents knew that I was trans and started HRT, and they told me constantly about how their nightmares led to countless hours of lost sleep. They even said that they couldn't even talk about it to their partner because they were afraid of a divorce. All of their "are you sure's" ate me up, and the final blow to my confidence that transitioning was the right choice for me happened to be a travel planning error where I was working at the time. We were traveling to meet our project's investors to showcase the progress we had made, and I had requested to room with a select few people on my team that I had trusted with my identity, as I didn't know how much progress HRT would have done to my body by the time we actually went on this trip. So in order to do this, I had to come out to my producer to make this happen, and they handled it extremely well, but the people that they went to book the rooms ended up dropping the ball, and I ended up rooming with someone I barely knew at the time. So with nothing but fear and uncertainty coming at me from all directions, I ended up stopping HRT. I tried to convince myself that I just had the wrong idea about myself and that I didn't need a transition. But that seed was planted, and every day I wake up, I see my face and body in the mirror and realize how wrong it all looked. I try to wear women's clothing occasionally in the privacy of my own home in an attempt to combat this dysphoria, but it became clear that that wasn't ever going to be enough. Then, 4 months, a job change, and a relocation later, I had had enough of my brain being under a barrage of gender dysphoria. I sought a new therapist, and within a month, she cleared out all of my doubts. I was finally confident that it wasn't a fetish or a fantasy. I 100% genuinely did not feel like a man. So, August 2018, I started HRT again and kept going till today. Now, for the first 9 months or so, I tried to use they, them pronouns with close friends, as I was still, in the early phases of my transition, and I didn't believe I could use she, her pronouns until I at least looked somewhat female. However, as I progressed, every male pronoun used for me hurt more and more until I just couldn't stand it anymore. I had to socially transition for my own sanity, first on Facebook and eventually at work. But when I did come out at work, I decided to just rip that band-aid off and just make the switch full-time to she and her pronouns. Coming out at work was possibly the most seamless process ever. My company had no policies to protect transgender people at the time, so when I brought this up to HR, they were super excited to update the policies to be all-inclusive. I sent a company-wide email stating my pronoun and name change, and was just bombarded with email after email of support, including the CEO of the company himself. Now, granted, there was a short growing pain period as people adjusted to the new name and pronouns, but everyone adjusted to it within like a week. So here we are now. It's 1.5 years later on March 31st, 2020. Looking back at where I was at the start of all this, I'm just so drastically happier. My life is my own, and I feel so much more connected to everything and everyone around me. I've discovered and accepted my own bisexuality. I'm way more outgoing, and often I'm the one to strike up conversations with new people around the office. The friendships I have now just feel more genuine, and I no longer fear bearing my soul to them. I enjoy the clothes I wear and often have a hard time deciding what kind of outfit to wear for the day, though I am a big fan of the soft rocker look. I love my hairstyle, even though taming its frizziness and waviness frustrate me sometimes. But also, transitioning didn't solve all of my problems. I still struggle with bouts of depression, intense anxiety, and attention span issues. But hey, while I still might be a little bit of a mess, at least now I'm a hot mess. I like myself now and actually want to put time and effort into taking care of myself, unlike before. So I'm taking steps to address those issues one at a time. It's also important to say that my journey has had its share of rough patches. My side of the family took a very long time to come around to just the idea of me being transgender. Even though my family now is using my name and pronouns correctly, it took me about a year of insisting to use my name, and they only really stuck to it once I legally changed it to that name. And now that I have legally changed my name, they've insisted that my extended family cannot know about me or my new name for fear of just putting too much strain on the older members of the family. And unfortunately, that led to me having to be excluded from the yearly gift exchange we have on Christmas. As for my partner's immediate family, they've been even less accepting. First, they asked me way too personal questions about sex and the surgery, and then a year later, they told me to my face that they still view me as a guy. I have felt ghosted and utterly dismissed by them. Fortunately, my partner's sibling and cousins were extremely understanding and supportive of my situation, and they've been my greatest allies in defending me when dealing with the older generation of that family. It's been a rough process, but I have hope that they'll come around eventually. So there you have it, my transition story. Often when I tell the story to people in person or talk about my future transition plans, people respond by saying how brave I am for going through all of this. And I gotta admit, it feels really weird to hear that. I'm a very scared and cautious person overall, the exact opposite definition of bravery. Me going through all of this isn't some valiant and harrowing adventure I chose to go on. It's more like I'm in a house and it's been burning down and falling apart for 25 years. My transition journey is just me running out of that house and slowly building a new house somewhere else. It wasn't a choice. I'm just doing what I had to in order to survive. In a way, me making this video wasn't much of a choice either. I want my voice to be out there so that way maybe another little Kira out there somewhere can learn from it and start living their true life that much earlier. So, happy Transgender Day of Visibility, and thank you so much for listening.